Let's first have a look at the prototype. If we go to AIXrail.de, we can actually see a really nice picture of the locomotive. AIXrail, as I understand it, is a leasing company where you can rent both locomotives and train drivers as you need. The locomotive is a class V60, which is a small diesel shunter from the 1950s. Actually, quite a lot of these were produced 942, and you can still find a lot of them around today, both with the original German railroads, but also with additional railroad companies like AIXrail. The maximum speed is 60 kilometers an hour. A fun fact was that originally it had a coal-fired oven for keeping the engine warm when it wasn't used. From the 1968s, approximately, it became class 260 and 261, depending on whether or not it was a light or a heavy version of the locomotive. The only difference was that the heavy version had a stronger frame. From 1987, the locomotive was reclassified as a minor locomotive and became 360 or 361. I've also seen other classes and designations. To be quite honest, I don't know what it is, a 362/363. This particular locomotive is actually a 362. The 362 and 363s have had their original Maybach engine replaced by a Caterpillar engine. The locomotive actually is very, very popular and as I said before, has a lot of was produced in big quantities. So even if we go look for it, we can see that there's a lot of different variations of it. This is one of the more classic ones you see here with the red and the cream stripe. As you can see, some of these are prototypes and some of them are from model train manufacturers. It has been replicated and produced in model trains a lot of times. You can see you can find lots of different paint schemes and varieties of this one. So all in all, it has been quite a popular locomotive. And here we have the model, nicely wrapped in a box. This is ESU 31422, and from first appearances I would say it actually looks like what we saw on the website. Let's unwrap it. Indeed, it comes in a nice box with protective foam. ESU is known for their gadgets/features, so I know this model comes with a lot of interesting things, including smoke and other stuff. Of course, full sets of lights and sound functions. We're going to look at that later. But you may also be able to see here there's actually an engineer inside as well. They also proudly wrote on their website there's different colors inside the cab. Let's try and remove some of the foam here. It comes mounted on a small rail. It looks very nice indeed. If you look at the number here, 362448-3, that was actually exactly the locomotive on the website. Yes, first impressions is it looks very, very nice. What else do we have in the box? A special tool here. and actually a key so I can get the locomotive off the plastic there. The special tool, if I remember right, is actually for dismounting the slider underneath, so you can use it for DCC as well. So here we also have some couplers. I guess they're needed if you're not happy with what is on here. As I understand it, these are automatic couplers. You can remote control and actually disengage cars with it. What I was saying before also is that this one can be used both on Märklin tree rail, but also as a DCC locomotive. The only difference is you have to use the tool I showed you before and actually be able to remove the slide underneath, and then it should be able to go on DCC tracks as well. There's a couple of manuals in here. One that says instruction manual. I guess it's both in English and German. Let's take a quick peek inside. There's a little about the prototype here in the nice red version. Lots of stuff about the prototype. Well, it looks like there's an entire story in here. Here's the information for how to remove the center pickup if you want to use it for DCC, and it looks like, let me just hold it here. It looks like there's a small slide underneath if you want to turn it into DCC. If I understand it right, it's by default configured for Märklin, and that's what I'm gonna show it on. There's a list of all the functions in here, and it looks extensive. I see 0 to 31. There's some information on how to use them with different systems. So I see here DCC, standard Märklin. I see digital operation. There's something about your first ride. I better read that before I put it on the track. It talks about sound functions. Ooh. It looks like the smoke generator is synchronized, I guess with the speed and or load. A little about how to operate the smoke generator. Programming. Decoder settings. And so on and so on. Oh, interesting piece. Maintenance as well. And spare parts. For extensive programming, if you want that, all the CVs. As I understand it, it's one of the modern look sound decoders in there. Cool. Let's put it on the track. All right, I got it on the tracks. Now I'm ready to turn on the mobile station. To be quite honest, I have no idea whether or not I need to program this into the mobile station or if it has MFX. So let's start up the mobile station and see if it recognizes it by default or if we have to program it. So the mobile station is starting up. It says kinda lock. Well, actually there's a locomotive, but I'm in stop mode. So let's get it out of stop mode. Ooh, MFX. So it is actually an MFX decoder in there as well. Nice. Then we don't have to worry about programming in all the features. Still loading. Still loading. I wonder if the load time is equivalent to number of features. So we hit the locomotive to see if we can see it. Ooh, we actually got it here. I see the picture is a little weird. No sweat. We can change the picture. Let's go and change the picture. Ooh, there's one there that kind of looks like it. All right. That's pretty much what we have on the track. Cool, we have it on the track. Now let's do a close-up of the little locomotive. Very nice, very detailed. See, there's lots of different kinds of railing on there. There's an engineer in the cab. Truly beautiful. There's small antennas for the radio control of or remote control of the locomotive on top as well. You see nice printing as well. I like the logo on there from the AIXrail. All in all, it looks pretty nice. Let's try and drive it at its slowest setting. So that's this. Ooh, drives really nice as well. Okay, let's take a look at the extensive list of functions. I'm only going to do a couple of the sounds first. So let's start with the engine sound. Nice. You even hear a slight squealing of the brakes as well. There's horn. Even a bell. Various kinds of sounds from the engineer. Brake. And so on. Let's turn the engine off again. Nice. Let's try some lights. I'll just dampen the light a little in here in the room. I think that's okay. Let's turn on the main lights. Ooh, look at that. Did you notice how nicely they turn on and off, slightly fade in and fade out? Let's change direction. Again, it faded into the red. Back to the white. Into the red. There's also, I believe, lights in the cabin. It must be this one here. Yes. Of course, you can change the headlights depending on your operation, whether or not you're shunting and other things. Let's try and do shunting operation and see if that changes anything. It changed the light, so now there's only one light down there. Not quite sure what that means. That's probably prototypical. It looks like no matter what the direction, there's a light there. Let me do a close-up to illustrate the cab light and instrument panel. I'm going to turn on the instrument panel now. And indeed, you can see there in front of the engineer, it lights up. I'm going to turn on the cab light as well. Nice. Let's try the smoke. There's lots of warnings, so especially kids, do not do this. Make sure you use the right smoke fluid so it won't damage the paint and so on. I'm using a Märklin one. It says use ESU ones, but I think we'll be okay. It also says do not put too much in there. So I'm only putting a little in there. So it's actually a little hard to catch the smoke on the camera. There's a big cloud above it. But I think with all the light and so on, it's difficult to see the smoke. Let me try again so we can see it. So right when the engine starts up, there will be a big puff of smoke. You saw there it came up. Well, there's actually a big cloud hanging in the room right now. As I understand it, as in the original, it says in the manual, when it's running, there's not really a lot of smoke coming out. I can see a little coming out. But it's really when it accelerates and when it starts. Sadly, I'm not having much success with the uncoupling sequence. Let me just show it here before I couple on to the freight cars. So the idea is that it moves closer to the freight cars to release tension. Then it uncouples and then it moves just a little away. So I'm going to activate it now. So the coupler actually uncoupled, but I've tried with several cars, both Railix couplers and closed guide couplers, and I must admit, sadly, I don't see it working. Okay, I found the problem with the coupling. According to the manual, Märklin couplers don't work. You need a special coupler, so that was actually why there was 2 extra couplers in the box. A little surprised, Märklin can actually make uncouplers, automatic uncouplers that work with Märklin, so why can't ESU? Well, nevertheless, let's try it out, see how it works. So I put one of the supplied couplers on this car. It couples nicely. Excellent. Now let's try and uncouple it. Indeed, it does uncouple. So I guess the solution to the problem is just buy new couplers for all my freight cars. Why not? Let's look at another feature of the little locomotive. That is the stay alive unit. So the idea is when you have dirty track and it can't get power, then it would keep it alive. I'll test it by turning off the track power. I will do that now. And as you saw, the train kept on going for what, 2-3 seconds or something like that. So the idea is if the track is dirty, it won't really matter too much to the locomotive because it will just have its own little keep alive power bank. This is very, very handy when doing shunting operations and slow movements. So actually quite fitting for this little locomotive. Yippee! So what do I think about this small shunting engine from ESU? Well, one thing I haven't talked about before is there's actually 13 different variants of this engine manufactured by ESU. So you can basically get whatever your heart desires from, let's say, the standard German railroad model to some from smaller private companies like the AIXrail I have here. They all work on both Märklin and DCC, and I believe they even work for DC as well. So the same locomotive can actually work anywhere on an HO track. If you look at the locomotive itself, it's actually very detailed. There's a lot of small details on there. All the railings are separately applied and so on. So all in all, they did a great job on the looks. There's many sound functions, and I will have to say I'm really impressed with the engine sound and the braking sound. It actually sounds very realistic. I've never seen one in real life myself. I'm just comparing with being out in the wild, seeing other locomotives. Many lights functions. I especially like the fading of lights when it changed between white light and red light, where it faded in between. There's even light in the instrument panel. Awesome. There is dynamic smoke. The dynamic smoke is synchronized with the engine and the movement of the locomotive. It was hard for me to catch on video, but it actually looks great in real life. The engine also has a stay alive component, such that it will run better on dirty track, which I would say is an awesome idea for a shunting engine, because a shunting engine you'll always move around slowly on the freight yard. So the only minus I really can find was the uncoupling mechanism. When I looked at it closer, it seems like the uncoupling mechanism is magnetic, and it seems like any couplers that are magnetic or metal, like the Märklin ones, will not work. So to me, I would put out a warning to Märklin enthusiasts. It does not work with their couplers, and what was perhaps a little more sad was the coupler supplied with it didn't seem to work with other Märklin couplers as well. Is it still worth it? Yes, I think so. I really, really like it. I will have to say, though, that the uncoupling mechanism not working for Märklin was a big one to swallow, but it's a great little engine.